Islamische Zentrum Hamburg hat uns, der Deutschen Muslimliga, die heute ihren 60. Geburtstag feiert, die Möglichkeit gegeben, diesen Geburtstag hier zu feiern. Und dafür möchte ich dem Islamischen Zentrum, insbesondere Herrn Dr. Ramadani, ganz herzlich danken für seine großartige Unterstützung, für seine immense Geduld und für seine fantastischen Mitarbeiter, Mohammed Ali Hosseini, ich weiß nicht, wo er sich gerade versteckt, der uns mit großer Energie und mit sehr viel Rat und Tat zur Seite gesprungen ist und diese Veranstaltung möglich gemacht hat. Vielen Dank. Es ist gute Tradition, dass wenn Muslime zusammenkommen, aus dem Koran rezitiert wird. Und diese Tradition ist mir heilig und deswegen bitte ich unseren ehrenwerten Imam, albanischen Imam, nach vorne zu kommen und ein paar Verse aus dem Koran, die ich dann in einer ungefähren deutschen Übersetzung wiedergeben werde, zu rezitieren. Bitte schön.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ادع إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن إن ربك هو أعلم بمن ضل عن سبيله وهو أعلم بالمهتدين وإن عاقبتم فعاقبوا بمثل ما عوقبتم به ولئن صبرتم لهو خير للصابرين واصبر وما صبرك إلا بالله ولا تحزن عليهم ولا تك في ضيق مما يمكرون إن الله مع الذين اتقوا والذين هم محسنون صدق الله العظيم الفاتحة
Lieber Sulhairat, Faizullah, vielen Dank. Ich beginne mit dem Namen des Gnadeerweisenden, des Allgnädigen. Lade ein zum Wege deines Herrn mit Weisheit und schöner Ermahnung und disputiere mit ihnen auf die beste Art. Dein Herr ist es, der Wissen darüber hat, wer von seinem Weg abkam. Auch allwissend ist er über die Rechtgeleiteten. Solltet ihr strafen, dann straft im gleichen Maße, wie ihr verletzt wurdet. Doch wenn ihr euch in Geduld übt, dies ist sicher besser für diejenigen, die sich in Geduld üben. Übe dich in Geduld. Deine Geduld wird dir Allah verleihen. Sei nicht traurig über sie und nicht bedrückt wegen dem, was sie an List planen. Allah ist gewiss mit denjenigen, die sich ehrfürchtig erwiesen und mit denjenigen, die gütig sind. Sadaqallahul Azim, Suratul Nahl, das ist die 16. Sure, Vers 125 bis Vers 128. Ich habe gerade die Meldung bekommen, dass 3 Autos kurz davor sind, abgeschleppt zu werden. Wenn jemand meint, er hätte doch nicht so günstig geparkt, wie er hätte parken sollen, im Sinne der Polizei nicht günstig geparkt, dann möge er doch bitte versuchen zu retten, was noch zu retten ist. Meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren, liebe Geschwister im Islam, ich begrüße Sie ganz herzlich zu einem ganz besonderen Vortrag, zum Gastvortrag aus Anlass des 60. Jubiläums der Deutschen Muslimliga, die 1954 hier in Hamburg ins Vereinsregister eingetragen wurde nach 5-jährigen Anstrengungen, denn seit 1949 haben sich Muslime in Hamburg bemüht, einen Verein bzw. eine Organisation zu gründen, um muslimisches Leben im Nachkriegsdeutschland zu gestalten. Damals fiel es den noch jungen Behörden im Nachkriegsdeutschland nicht einfach, einen rechtlichen Rahmen zu finden, um eine islamische Organisation in diesen rechtlichen Rahmen einzubetten. Und nachdem man 5 Jahre überlegt hat, hat man gesagt, das Vereinsrecht ist das, was wir der Deutschen Muslimliga, den deutschen Muslimen, den 7 deutschen Muslimen von deutschen Eltern, die keine sogenannten islamischen Namen trugen, diesen 7 Herrschaften, von denen einer unter uns weilt, nämlich unser Bruder Bashir Ahmad Dulz, einen Verein für muslimisches Leben gründen zu lassen.
Darf ich bitte kurz einfügen, wir hatten alle muslimische Namen, die damals nicht gültig waren.
Ja. Und wenn man das Vereinsprotokoll sieht, dann weiß man das, dann sieht man das, es ist kein sogenannter muslimischer Name dabei. Für die 50-Jahr-Feier gelang es uns, die 50-Jahr-Feier fand auch vor 10 Jahren in dieser wunderschönen Stadt, in der Hansestadt Hamburg statt, gelang es uns, Professor Dr. Ramadan für uns zu gewinnen, und damals hielt er einen sehr beachteten und viel beachteten Vortrag. Als die 60-Jahr-Feier anstand, habe ich mir gesagt, wen Besseren kann ich finden, um muslimisches Denken in Europa in eine größere Öffentlichkeit hineinzuprojizieren, als meinen guten Freund Dr. Ramadan. Das war nicht ganz einfach, ihn nach Hamburg zu lotsen. Und alle, die hier heute sitzen, können sich sehr glücklich schätzen, ihn live zu erleben. Denn er kommt nicht oft nach Deutschland. Heute ist er ein vielgefragter Fachmann, im wahrsten Sinne des Wortes Fachmann, für Fragen des Islam und der Muslime. Er ist nicht einer der Experten, die uns als Experten präsentiert werden, wenn wir das Fernsehen einschalten oder Radio hören. Er gehört in eine andere Liga. Professor Dr. Ramadan ist der Lehrstuhlinhaber für zeitgenössische Islamstudien an der Universität Oxford. Und er hat den Weg zu uns gefunden, weil uns auch eine sehr persönliche Freundschaft verbindet. Denn nachdem er hier vor 10 Jahren einen Gastvortrag hielt, kam er mit der Idee auf uns zu, auf meinen Bruder Michael Pfaff, da sitzt er, um meine Wenigkeit, und sprach mit uns über die Notwendigkeit, ein Netzwerk von Muslimen europaweit zu gründen. Und kurze Zeit später fanden wir uns in Brüssel, in Belgien ein und gründeten das European Muslim Network, in dem sich Vertreter der meisten europäischen Nationen befinden, junge und ältere engagierte Muslime, die etwas für die muslimische Gemeinschaft, für das muslimische Leben in Europa tun wollen. Und Dr. Ramadan ist unser Vorsitzender. Er ist der Verfasser unzähliger Bücher. Wie er mir vor kurzem berichtete, arbeitet er zurzeit an 3 Büchern gleichzeitig. Wie er das macht, weiß ich nicht. Er ist einer der wichtigsten muslimischen Denker in Europa. Und was ihn auszeichnet, er ist auch ein sehr selbstkritischer Denker, was die muslimische Gemeinschaft in Europa betrifft. Er wird von vielen geschätzt, von einigen kritisiert und von ganz wenigen wird er bewusst missverstanden. Die DML ist geehrt, ihn als Gastredner zu haben, und ich danke, dass er trotz seines immens vollen Terminkalenders den Weg zu uns gefunden hat. Er wird einen Vortrag halten mit dem Titel Aufgaben und Verantwortung des Muslims in Europa. Dieser Vortrag wird ca. 45 Minuten dauern. Ich kenne ihn, ich weiß, dass er viel länger sprechen kann. Deswegen werde ich jetzt hier aufhören, damit er mehr Zeit bekommt. Aber wir werden so gegen 16 Uhr dann die Diskussion, die sich anschließt an seinen Vortrag, auch beenden müssen. Denn wie gesagt, er muss heute Abend zurück nach Paris, weil er heute Abend schon wieder eine Verpflichtung hat. Sie sehen, ein vielbeschäftigter Mann. Professor Dr. Ramadan, thank you for coming. Thank you, brother. Thank you. And we are looking forward to some enlightening information from your side. And we hope that you will give us a lot of food for thought that will accompany us in the weeks to come. So the floor is yours.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Thank you so much, Brother Bilal, for this introduction. And I think really, if I'm here, is thanks to his effort to bring me, and because of my commitments and things that I'm doing around the world these days. And as he was saying, writing books, but at the same time, chairing many institutions and trying my best to cope with all that. I want to start by thanking the organizers, of course, 60 years. I forgot that I knew that I came before, but I didn't know that this was 10 years ago. So time is flying. So I want to thank you for repeating and inviting me again. Sayyid Sheikh Ramadani for being with us today and also because of some of the things that he's doing in trying to bring together, beyond the work that he's doing within the Shia tradition, bringing Sunni and Shia together and to try to have an internal dialogue, which is so important today, and for him to sit and to be with us today, and all the other organizers for being here. I have a special fatwa. And the special fatwa is the following. I don't have, because you reminded me of that this morning when you were talking about clapping. And I know that you like clapping, and there is nothing haram in clapping. There is nothing wrong with clapping from an Islamic viewpoint. But my personal fatwa is to ask you during the whole talk, and then we finish the talk, to try to avoid clapping and to listen to this lecture as if you are reading a book. And as I'm always saying, if you read a book and you like the thoughts that you have in a book, you don't start clapping. Or if you do that, you might have to take some appointment with some medical doctor. So just for us to have a sense of, at the end of the talk, a silence that is helping you when you have a thought that you like, to think about it, to ponder over it, and to avoid having this emotional reaction to lectures, because I think that there is a problem with this. There is a problem in clapping for thoughts, because in fact, you are also clapping for the one who is talking, and we have to stop with that. We have to stop to go to lectures where we are confusing the message with the people. And we have to think about the thoughts, and that's it. And at the end, it's between us, and between us and our heart. And by the way, I forgot also to thank Bilal's father, who was a friend and a brother of my father. So these are generation after generation, and I want to pay tribute to him. And I know that some others met my father, so rahimahullah, and this is also something beyond time which is important. Faith, brotherhood, love, they don't have to deal with 10 years. They don't have to deal with 60 years. This is beyond time, and this is the way we are saying when we love somebody, that I love you for the sake of God, means it's beyond time. That it's even beyond how you look, but it's who you are. So I also want to thank the translation, because I have studied 6 years German, and here we are. So I lost almost everything, unfortunately. Introduction, 3 main points, and I will try to stick to my time. Like this, you will have the time to ask some questions. We are celebrating today 60 years of an organization that was dealing with the Muslims and the reality of German Muslims or Muslim Germans. I don't have a problem with one comes first, and if you have a question about this, I'm questioning your question. Because it's a silly question, I'm sorry to tell you. If you talk about being a citizen, you are a German first. And if you are talking about your death, you are a Muslim first. But to have this obsession that you have to put Islam first, as if it was contradicting you belonging to Germany, understand that in the name of Islam, you respect your belonging to this country, and there is no contradiction. There is no contradiction. And in fact, when we are with Allah, we understand that this is, of course, it's coming first in everything. But I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about being a citizen. And when you are a citizen, you have to deal with the country. You have to deal with the legal framework within which you are. So don't respond in a silly way to a silly question, or don't fall into the trap. And I'm always, if you have read the book, What I Believe, I'm quoting the book, no, because he was with me in Greece, we had a discussion with, the Nobel Prize of Economics, who wrote a book about identity. And I forgot his name now. It will come back to me. And he was saying, you can be at the same time a poet and a vegetarian. You can. And when you go to eat, it's not the time to say that you are a poet. It's time to say I'm a vegetarian. And when we are in a circle of poets, it's not the time to say you are a vegetarian, you are a poet. Depending on the context, things come first. So it's not I'm this and I'm only this. We have multiple identities, and depending on what we are dealing with, something comes first. So this is the point Amartya Sen. You haven't read the book? You have to. So we are coming here to celebrate 60 years, and then there is something that I want to tell you when I'm asked about our responsibilities as European Muslims, is really to start with stopping to look at our problems now and to have a historical approach about the 1, 2, and 3 generations. Why? Because the historical perspective is changing the perspective. If you look only at the problems now, the problems are going to be overwhelming your mind and your understanding. It has a psychological impact on you. You lose history and you are overwhelmed by the present. But settling down in a country, being part of a society, building the future of European Muslims takes time. And if you look at history, you are amazed. Who? Ask Bilal's father. I can even ask my own history for the last 30 years. Where we were 50 years ago and where we are today, it's amazing. What the Muslims and the European Muslims have achieved over 2 generations is amazing. But we are so obsessed with the current challenges that we forget the historical achievements. And this is where you have to change the mindset. Many of the problems that we have, European Muslims, are coming out of our psychology. We have psychological problem in assessing our situation, and we are not positive about it. While if you come back to the Prophet ﷺ, facing all the problems, the power of the Prophet ﷺ, the power of the believers, they were trusting God and trusting time. Because they trust God, they were trusting time. We are losing hope in time because we are not trusting God enough. But with 2 generations, what the Muslims have done, what we have achieved, and where we are now, just ask your fathers and mothers when they came, they were not realizing that this was going to be as it is now. And many of the problems that we have today with people going on talking about integration are not going because we are failing. I will just tackle this issue. They are coming because we are succeeding, if only we look at the situation the right way. So I would urge you, as people who are living and facing problems today, don't stop or don't reduce your vision to the contemporary problems, but have this historical perspective and be positive. If there is something that I want you to keep out of this lecture, be positive. Be positive. And this is coming from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ saying, whatever happened to the Muslims is good for him or for her. If it's good, alhamdulillah. If it's bad, alhamdulillah ala kulli hal. Which means we praise God if it's good, and we praise God whatever if it's bad. Why? Because it might be that what we think it's bad now could be good for the future. This is trusting Him. This is trusting the reality. Because what it is said in a spiritual way, that God is going to test the people He loves. What does it mean? It means that the test that is coming to you could be perceived as an obstacle or as a test. With faith, an obstacle is a test. Without faith, without trust, an obstacle is just an obstacle. We take it as something which is preventing us from achieving things. So we have to come with this vision which is also positive. Now, it doesn't mean with this that we should not have a critical assessment of where we are today. And we have to be critical. We have to come to our situation by looking at what was done, which is positive, and looking at what has to be done, or still has to be done, which is our responsibility. And there is something which is even important in our critical assessment. Around us, many of our fellow citizens and the governments and the journalists are stigmatizing the reality of our situation by letting us understand that many of our problems are religious. It has to do with Islam. And there is one point in our critical assessment which is important, which is we need to take it right, and we need to assess it right. What is Islamic and what is not? Many of the problems that we have nothing to do with Islam, but we keep on talking about them as Islamic. Why? Because many of our politicians, because they lack a political vision, they are Islamizing problems. They are ethnicizing problems. You are like this because you are Muslim. No, it might be because I'm poor, because I don't have a job, because I am stigmatized, because I am on the margin. So don't take the social problem and make it Islamic. Instead of putting me as a Muslim, you are asking me to be a citizen, and when you have a problem, you look at me only as a Muslim. So I look at you as a politician, and you know what you have to do is to reconcile yourself with politics. And you know what it means, politics? To have a policy, to have a vision, not to instrumentalize religions because you have a lack of political vision. So we have to be quite clear in the assessment. What is Islamic and what is not? And I would suggest to some European Muslims, stop talking too much about Islam. It's paradoxical. Because we like it. Have to go have, this is da'wah. And we have to tell them, stop it, please. Just keep quiet. It's the best da'wah you can do so far. If you understand what I mean. I'm sure you understand. So that's a very important point to start with. And then there is a third thing which is important, which is to look at history in a positive way, to be critical with our assessment, knowing what is Islamic and what is not, and to come with a critical assessment of what has to be done. And there is another understanding, which is, at the end of the day, this is a historical experience that we are facing. And we understand something which is, listen to this, it's coming from us as believers, it's coming from God. And God is telling us something when he's talking about the messenger that was sent to us. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. We sent you as a mercy, but as a mercy to the worlds. So your presence and your mission, it's about mercy. And the mercy is what? Is a gift, that you have something to give. And when you come to the Prophet ﷺ and he is talking about his mission, he's saying something which is deep. إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمِ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I was sent but to achieve, to complete the good character, the good behavior. Meaning what? It's not only about Muslims. To achieve means it was with the Jews, it was with the Christians, it was even with the Hindus and the Buddhists before. What is my mission is to complete, it's to confirm and to add. It's not new, it's not a new message, it's an old message that we are reminded of. That's the point. So he's a mercy. Why? Because he's coming to recall, to remind us of something which was there that we are forgetting. And if you come to a new place, if you understand your mission in Europe, it's not to convert the people to Islam. That's none of your business. Who told you that you have to convert somebody? You can't do that. This is between God and every single heart. You don't have. أَفَأَنْتَ تُقْرُهُ النَّاسَ حَتَّى يَكُونُوا مُؤْمِنِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, وَلَوْ شَاءَ رَبُّكَ لَآمَنَ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ كُلُّهُمْ جَمِيعًا. If your Lord would have liked it, all the people on earth would have believed. But that's not so. Are you going to constrain them? Are you going to impose this on them? That's none of your business. But what you have as a duty is in fact to remind the people of the principles they already have. I'm a witness. And if you look at me, you have to look at a mirror. I come with justice. Don't you think justice is important? Yes, this is a shared value. I'm reminding you of the principles you have that sometimes you forget. Solidarity, dignity, freedom, commitment. In a society where all the people are talking about my rights, my rights, my rights, or as we have in the hadith, nafsi, nafsi, nafsi. What we come from Muslims is your responsibilities, and then the others, your solidarity. I'm not coming here to convert the people. I'm here to remind them of old principles they might have forgotten. That's completely different. So my responsibility is this. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون. You are the best community in as much as it's a condition that you do what is right, you promote what is right and resist what is wrong. And then the other one, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. We made you the nation or the religion of the middle path. Why? In order for you to bear witness to the truth before people. You have to be witnesses. And when I am meeting a Christian, I'm not expecting him to try to convert me. I want to see in him the signs of his religion or her religion, for him or her to be a witness. And I can tell you something, that I met Christians in South America. I met Christians in Geneva. I met Christians in Germany. I met Christians in Asia. That helped me to be a better Muslim because they were witnesses. And if I have a role to play in Europe, it's to be a witness. I'm not here to convert. I'm here to remind myself and the people around me. So we need to understand that this is a gift. In fact, very, very often the people in Europe, they look at us and say, you Muslims, you are a problem. And we might have to answer, we might be a gift. You don't know yet. A gift, but the gift that I am, it's not to convert you because this is not in my hand. To remind you of principles that we are sharing, to be a good person, to in fact apply in your daily life the principles that you and me are cherishing. Dignity, justice, solidarity, freedom, equality, and more even, things that have to do with your own heart. And things that are very deep, very deep. You know, I just wrote a book. It was a discussion with a French philosopher, one of the greatest minds that remain alive. He's 93. He's called Edgar Morin. And I knew him as a very powerful mind, knowledgeable. He has a series of books on complexity, so reconciling our minds with complexity. And you know what I discovered? I didn't discover his mind. I discovered his heart when he was talking at the end of our discussion about forgiveness, the way he forgave someone who killed his wife, not his wife, Edgar Morin, but his wife. And then he was in jail. And he went through all this experience of forgiveness. And I met somebody who's an atheist, originally a Jew, atheist Jew, who came to me talking about forgiveness, and he brought me back to the meaning of rahmah. He helped me to be a better Muslim. He made me cry. He made me cry. He was the witness of his principles. And I would say that this is where we have to start to understand our presence, is to be witnesses and to share our principles. Why am I saying this? Because this is the background of our discussion. That's very important. And very often in our discussion as European Muslims, we are at the periphery. We want to respond to problems and we don't get the essence. What am I doing here? What is the meaning of my life? And this is where we have to start. Now, if we understand the meaning of our presence, the first, and this is the first part. So the first part of my talk is the responsibilities that we have towards ourselves. And this is also something which is important. It's always like this. When you are in an aircraft and the people are talking about the security, if something is going to happen, you will see that they're always telling you, start with yourself. Okay, even if you have your child, you first put things on you and then you help your child. Why? Because there is something which is the sense of security has to do with you are not starting with yourself out of selfishness, but as out of priority. This is going to help you. And everything that has to do with spirituality, look at Buddhism, Hinduism, or in the chronological order, Confucianism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, we are all having exactly the same thing. And even in the Greek tradition, start with yourself. Start with yourself. So know what are your own responsibilities towards yourself. And I would say that something which is very important for European Muslims is the first responsibility, as we are talking about. Is it going to... Is it safe? Scary. Can I carry on?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would say that for European Muslims, as we are talking and we are here in an organization that is celebrating 60 years, I would say that the great responsibility of European Muslims is to get a better understanding of Islam. And this morning, we had a discussion which was important. A better understanding of Islam means first to get the message. And you, European Muslims, German Muslims, you have a responsibility which is a responsibility that starts with even the language. You know that from Arabic to Arabic, we have a problem of translation. Look at the shuyukh, look at the scholars. When you talk about even Sharia, take 3 scholars, put them and ask them about Sharia. You will see the discussion. And we are between Arabs, the definition, the understanding, the concept is problematic. It's not problematic. In fact, it's multidimensional. Because it could be the path towards faithfulness, a path, because Sharia means the path, the path leading you towards the sources. It could be the legal dimension. It could be the methodological dimension, depending on what you are talking about. It could be the ethical dimension. Maqasid, makarim al-akhlaq, you had makarim al-akhlaq, which has to do also with the virtues that are essential in the way we deal with Sharia. مكارم الشريعة، مقاصد الشريعة، أحكام الشريعة، مصادر الشريعة. It's very difficult. But at least you have to start with making this a universe that at least you are trying to deal with it from the Arabic language to the German language. The first colonization when it comes to Islam comes from people who are using words with the wrong definition. And Foucault was saying, language is power. Who decides the definition is going to set the scene of the discussion. So if you are not equipped by saying, no, I'm sorry, jihad doesn't mean this. Jihad has nothing to do with holy war. That's not the same words that we have as crusades, for example. That's not the same meaning. And we have some people, I was in France just after the Charlie Hebdo tensions and controversy, having journalists saying, you know what, we have to remove jihad from your vocabulary. I said, what are you talking about? What are you talking? You think that you have the power to remove words from my universe of reference? You better know it better. You better learn about it. But I can't say this to the people if we are not doing the job. German Muslims should have a good command of the German words to define the Arabic concepts. That's first. That's the very important things, and this is why you are equipped. What does it mean? It means that you have now to come to a deeper understanding of your religion. And a deeper understanding of your religion, this has to do with books, not with lectures. It's not YouTube, if you get me right. Because some of you, they think that they are gaining knowledge through websites and Facebook and YouTube and say, oh, your last lecture was good. But it's just a lecture. It's not a book. And this is why you have to be equipped with the language. It's an intellectual jihad that has to do with ourselves. First, do you know what you are talking about? Do you know al-ruhaniyya, for example? What does it mean? Things, the concept, for example, things that are universal. Al-fitra in Islam, these are words that are so powerful. They are universal. This is what I call the intimate universal. But at least the Muslims have to do with this. So the linguistic jihad. Yes, you can say that. Sometimes I'm talking to Muslims who are not from people from other faiths, and I'm telling them, you know that you are doing a jihad now without knowing it. So jihad, yes, positive. The point for us here, it's this getting the essence, the concept. The second thing which is important is knowing the priorities. Be careful. Because we are in a context where the questions are coming from outside, there is something which in our understanding of Islam is strategic distraction, diversion. People are coming with questions and you forget the essence. To get the priorities right. Islam is first a spiritual message. It has to do with reforming yourself. It has to do with my own heart. It has to do with my communication with God. Not to please the people, but to please Him. And to please Him means, at the end, that I will please the people. But first is Him. It's not a PR exercise to make Islam accepted. It's a spiritual exercise that makes you respected by your own self. It's you facing the mirror, not facing the opinions of people. We are not here to please, we need to reform ourselves. So the and I'm always saying this, in the West, 95% of my talks have nothing to do with what Islam is, but we end up saying what Islam is not. It's not violence, it's not war, it's not. So what it is? We have to come to this. And this is where, remember something which is important. In times of attacks, the Prophet ﷺ, from the very beginning, he heard this. وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا يَقُولُونَ وَهْجُرْهُمْ هَجْرًا جَمِيلًا. Be patient with what they are saying and isolate yourself from them with a beautiful exile. So take time to know who you are. That's the responsibility of European Muslims. And don't react straight away. Every time you have a controversy, you go for it. I'm going to show them. You are going to show them what? That you are emotional. That's what we are going to show the people. And for this, we are very emotional. And the louder we speak, we think that this is right. Because it's loud. I don't know from which mathematical equation we have. Loud is right? No. In fact, it's the opposite. Very often, loud shows that's wrong. And sometimes the Prophet ﷺ was responding to attacks by being silent, not responding. And he got from the Quran, وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا, peace. I'm not an agent of controversies. I'm an agent of peace. But I can only get peace around if I start with peace within. So the priorities are very important here in the way we are with God, the way we have to reform ourselves, and to understand something. At the end of the day, faith in Islam is visible. Yes, it's visible. In Islam, faith should be visible. And you know how? By what I said at the beginning. إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمِ الْأَخْلَاقِ. By the way we behave, by the way we talk. When the people insult, you don't insult. If the people don't respect the sacred, you respect the sacred. You are ignoring their insult, but you respond with respect. لا تسبوا الذين يدعون من دون الله فيسبوا الله عدوا بغير علم. You don't have to insult why they believe instead of God, because you will end up pushing them to insult you. In fact, you are even responsible of the reaction of the people. You are not only responsible of what you say, but you are responsible by the way they are going to be emotional about what you do. So these are the priority. Muslims should start with this. With all the things that we had, the cartoons in the Danish, the people here were telling you, we don't want you Muslims, get away from here, even in Germany. And what is your answer? We are at home. Salamu alaikum. And we say it in German. Because, yeah, say it in German. Because some of the Muslims, they don't get that. You know, they go to demonstrate to show that they are good, and they don't understand that, in fact, the demonstration is for whom? If you go in the streets in Germany, who are you talking to? To Muslims in Saudi Arabia? To your fellow citizens. And some are going outside, you know, even for Palestine, say, Allahu Akbar. Sometimes friends of me say, they are so strange. They don't get that. That's for non-Muslims or for German people or for European people, Allahu Akbar means kill them all. The media is so distorting the message. They say, Allah, yeah, kill him. And you go to demonstrate for them to understand that you are supporting a peaceful process by saying things that are not understandable. This is where we have to understand who we are and where we are. Who we are and where we are. And to speak the language, because خَاطِبُ النَّاسِ عَلَى قَدْرِ عُقُولِهِمْ. Ali Karramallah Wajha was saying this. So talk to the people at the level of their understanding. So this is where we have to talk. This is what we have to understand. And this is where we should understand. And then we come to the very long tradition. You know, to be facing our contemporary problems doesn't mean that the Muslims could cut themselves from a very long tradition. If you go to all these philosophers that we had, Al-Kindi, Al-Farabi, Abu Hamid Al-Ghazali, Al-Miskawi, they were talking about the essence of your life is to get something which is a sa'ada. That every 5 times a day we have Hayya al-Falah, which is success, which is salvation. What does it mean? These are the priorities of our life. Miskawi was saying it's a sa'ada, it's happiness. We have the right to be happy as Muslims. And what does this mean? When you are in Germany, you have the right to feel good. You are not a good Muslim because you feel bad. This is also our complex, your inferiority complex, or the way we are defensive. Because I don't feel good with you, it means I'm a good Muslim. That's that. What's this? That's wrong. We have to understand this, that even the Prophet ﷺ with Al-Ansar, he was settling there. He wanted to understand their taste, their culture, to take from them. So this is something which is essential for us as Muslims. And then you come to the long tradition of thinkers that we have, scholars that we have, and people that are having their message completely distorted. That, for example, you have Al-Qarafi, for example, talking in a very deep way about the dignity of human being. Ibn Taymiyyah, that is completely colonized by the Salafi, was much deeper than what they are doing out of him. when he was talking about love in your heart, the way you have to nurture, responding to Abu Hamid al-Ghazali by saying, no, the 5 principles of Islam are not only protecting deen and all this, it's also to protect your heart, the well-being of your heart. This is our tradition. Don't cut yourself as German Muslims, as European Muslims, from an old, rich tradition that it's you, it's coming from you, and you have to bring it back into something which is a gift to humanity. Because one of the main problems of the European culture is to cut its own history from the contributions of Islam in history, in science, in all these dimensions. And the only one that we know, Ibn Rushd, because he was the rationalist. Even him, it's wrong what they are saying about him, because he was a judge, qadi, he was an alim, he was a sheikh, not only a philosopher talking about rationality. And we are doubly alienated because we don't do this. So I'm sorry to say, you are in a country where you can get knowledge. We are in a continent where we get knowledge. You can't say you cannot get it. You can't say now, even in German or in English, I cannot get this knowledge. And this is the struggle. This is where we have to start. And I would say that my main problem with European Muslims is this double alienation. They are repeating things that are said about them because they don't know who they are and where they are coming from. That's a challenge. So we have to deal with this. And then there is also something which is important. We were talking to Sayyid al-Sheikh before this. Is something that we need also to deal with is within our community, this diversity. Get it right. Al-Quran was Sunnah are our 2 sources. But from the very beginning, the scholars understood that there is diversity of interpretations. You don't have the monopoly of this interpretation. You are to be humble in the way we deal with this. And we have to get it right. Sunni and Shi'i are Muslims and they have to get together. And then among Sunni, we have to come to managing our diversity instead of falling into our divisions. And this is a question of mindset. I want to give you an example. There are some people, they spend the whole Ramadan, the months of Ramadan, talking about the first day where we didn't agree. I say, you know what? We are in trouble. Why? We don't start at the same time. Instead of looking at 28 days where we are fasting together, they are obsessed with one day when we didn't start together. You get the mindset? And at the end, just tell to yourself, we are going to have 2 Eids, alhamdulillah. Be positive about this and manage this diversity. It's something which is important. Now, there is also things which is important that are our responsibility. You live in Germany. And you know, when this question about who are you first, very quickly and to have it quite clearly, in the name of Islam, because you live in this country, you have something which is a contract, aqd, with the society. And we have something which is important, which is you abide by the contract that you have within the society. المسلمون عند the what? Contract. What they are signing. Uqudihim means here that you have to abide by the rules of the country. You come here and there are rules. As long as nobody is asking you to act against your conscience, you have to abide by the rule of the country. So the legal German framework for the German citizens is what you have to respect. And all the governments are telling us, we don't have a problem with Muslims because they are law-abiding. So we have to get clear on this. Not to play. So some people are saying, you know what, the taxes, it's not Islamic. So it's a halal distortion. No, that's sorry. The law of the country are the law of the country, you pay your taxes. And even, you know, the green light, it's a bid'ah. There were no traffic lights in Medina. So the people who are going to play with this, you have to be clear. We abide by the law of the country. So this is the first L I'm talking about, the 3 L's. One of them is the law of the country. And we have to be quite clear. And we also have to be clear with some of our brothers and sisters who are not clear with this. And it goes very far, you know, even when we have things like marriages. Marriages, as some say, you know what, this is all kuffar business. Let us come together, just a paper, and we are married. العقد السريع هذا, that's halal. We have a halal nikah. I say no. In this country, and from an Islamic viewpoint, when you have a aqd, it means that there are conditions. What is the meaning of signing something and you know that you are not going to abide by the rules? It's not possible because it's not acknowledged by the country. So in fact, we have men and sometimes women and sometimes both together. They are playing with the rules and say, this is Islamic. That's not. That's playing. That's playing. So when we have to be serious because it's a two-way process. It's a commitment. If now you are telling me that you want to get married, we have to abide by the law. What does it mean to respect the rules and the conditions of marriage? Not to play and say, oh, I'm married before God, but not before human beings. Or not before kuffar, because we like that. By the way, we're very cautious with the term kuffar. It's very dangerous to use this word, because when you say to somebody that he's a kafir, you don't know what he or she knows about Islam. So stop talking with this, you know, we are using kafir as an insult, and we have to avoid that. And even, you know, with some of the people who are saying kuffar, you just ask them, sit down, tell me the difference between al-kufr al-akbar, al-kufr al-asghar, al-kufr bidun kufr. I say, what? I say, that's it. That's the point. You don't know what you are talking about. And there are categories of kufr that are very, so we have to avoid using terms that we don't understand. And then very quickly, because oh la la, I knew that I had to go to have time, problem with time. You give me 5 minutes? That's okay. I knew. You know what? I'm halfway. 5 minutes. So it will come out of your questions. But the other thing which is important is, as European Muslims, we abide by the law, but there is something which is deeper than that. And this is a mistake that I made myself by saying, you know, I was concerned when I wrote the book To Be European Muslim, that is translated into German, was very much about fiqh in our situation in Europe. It was to reconsider law and jurisprudence. So this was a book. 25 years ago, I started thinking about the rules. And then that was very important. It was a step. But it's not the final step. Why? Because in fact, the point for us is not only to abide by the law, but it's also to ask ourselves, how do we read our Quran, al-Masadir, al-Sunnah, the prophetic tradition, helping us to feel at home here? It's the sense of belonging. And this is why it was very interesting when you were talking about the sense of belonging. What does it mean to feel that you are part? And in fact, you get the sense of belonging when you are thinking that you are part of the narrative of the country. Don't let the journalists or some intellectuals and some politicians put you out of the narrative. They want to make you feel outside. There is a new concept of foreign citizens now. You are citizens with the paper, with the ID, but not within the nation. So you are citizen by law, but not citizen within the nation, the narrative that we are sharing. And this is where we have to win. This is where we have to understand that now we need, and this is why I wrote 12 years ago the Manifesto for a New We. You know, some people in Switzerland say, you, and I'm playing with them, say, who is this you are talking about? I say, you Muslims, yes, that's fine, but are you talking as what? As a Christian? No, me as a Swiss. Oh, so us. Okay, you get me? I'm within your narrative. Don't put me outside. You are not talking to somebody who is outside the narrative. I'm as Swiss as you are, and we are building the future together. So this sense of belonging is, how are we going to build the future together? And you have to get it right. We need to have an Islamic discourse, khitab Islami, working on us as German citizens building the future with others. Okay? And I always saying, you know, you have a football player, he's Turkish by origin, Muslim, Turkish, but German, isn't it? And the point is that when he comes to playing football and he's helping Germany to win, people are happy. I'm not going to ask you, where do you come from? No, where are we heading together? Winning the World Cup together. So it's a project for the future. The narrative is looking back to the past, to be part of the past and to come to the future. But to do this, it's something which is important. We have to feel it. Are you part of the future? And this is the new we that, so the narrative, it's important. Having said that, what do we need to do this? It's to come to the psychology, or the collective psychology within a society. You can't be a German, you can't be a European if you don't understand the past, the history. You need to study history and the trauma that were affecting and are still affecting the country. You can't understand German today as to the relationship, for example, with diversity, cultures and religions, Judaism, for example, if you don't get a sense of history. You need to get that. You cannot ask the people to forget about this. You need to understand, to feel from within what is this trauma that it's so important. Not to accept any discrimination, but to understand the reasons, the way the people are thinking within the society, and to be part of the process by saying, yes, by the way, to be clear, as Muslims, anti-Semitism is anti-Islamic. There is nothing like anti-Semitism in Islam. To be critical towards a government, Israel or Saudi Arabia, doesn't make you an anti-Semite or an Islamophobic man or woman. No, you are criticizing a country, a government, a policy. But when it comes to religions, when it comes to racism, no way. It's by Islamic reference that you cannot be a racist. You can't. And anyone who is using the resistance in Palestine to promote any kind of anti-Semitic statement is not. But this is something which is our principles, and we integrate this into our sense of belonging, to understanding the trauma here. Because they were racists. By the way, not only in Europe. In Muslim majority countries, there is a great deal of racists. And sometimes it's just Arabs versus Turks, even between Arabs. Algerian versus Moroccan. And then you come to color, black people, white people, Arab people. That's the reality of it. So we have to come to this to understand. The second thing which is important here in our discussion is what I said at the beginning, is the language. Very important to get the language of the country. And the language of the country, it's not only speaking German, it's to get the culture. And this is why we are very often not getting it. European Muslims should take advantage of the converts, not to Arabize them, Turkicize them, but to get the sense of the culture here, that they get it from within. And now, generations of Muslims, you have to get this from within, the sense of culture. And you know when you are sure that you are sharing the culture of the country? It's when you get the sense of humor. You can learn a language for years, and sometimes they are joking, you don't get it. I say, why are they laughing? Some very subtle thing. And this is halal sense of humor. Not always. But that's true that Muslims today, they are so much under pressure that sometimes they are losing their sense of humor. It's halal to laugh in Islam. You need to start with this sometimes in our reaction to the society around. So to have this, to get the language, to get the culture, to get the sense of humor also, the artistic dimension, imagination. And this is why I'm very often saying to Muslims, study arts, study imagination, study literature. There is nothing wrong with this. This is all good. Write novels in German, arts, because this has to do with your own imagination. And you can find it, you find the ethical way of doing it, but do it. Do it as something which is part of who you are and what you want. So I think that this is a very important, and this is where we come back to the first point I make. This is your contribution, reconciling Europe with its own principles, in the way we are dealing with arts, in the way we are dealing with justice, in the way we are dealing with solidarity, in all these dimensions. And I would say two things here is, for the Muslims, the European Muslims, one of their responsibilities is to stop being visible within the society only when we speak about Islam. Where are you when we speak about education? Where are you when we speak about economics? Where are you when we speak about solidarity? Where are you when we speak about environment? Where are you when we speak about all this? You are German, you are European, so speak about European issues, not only about Islam. Don't let the people put you in a box. We have to talk about everything, but to do this, we have to be equipped. We have to be equipped to come and to be everywhere. This is why you feel that you are part of a society, that you are, in fact, realizing this. And it means also to talk about the universal values that we have, because we have universal values. And this is where also in the field of education and in some of the main issues, we have to tackle the issues of education in our societies. When we are producing ignorant citizens about diversity and cultures, and history. We need to deal with social justice. We need to deal with women. And not only by this discussion that say, you know what, you are liberating women only when we speak about the way they dress. That's not the point. Let the people dress as they want, but come to the real issue when it comes to education, when it comes to job market, when it comes to salary. As European Muslims, we are, I'm finishing, I promise, we are talking about same salary for the same skills. This is where we have to be. Not on the margin, putting, as I say, you know, the headscarf. This is a joke. You think that you are liberating women as long as it is their choice. No one can impose into a woman to wear the headscarf. No one can impose into her to take it off. It should be her choice. But the point which is very important, does she have access to education, job market, and the salary with the same skills? This is where we have to be. This is where we are contributing to a very... Don't come and lecture the world about women, and then when you come to the job market, there are problems that we are not talking about. We are avoiding some of the problems. So this is where, once again, we have also to talk about poverty. We have to talk about solidarity. This is where I'm talking about this by saying this is where we reconcile Europe with its own principles. We say, okay, we are here to reconcile the people. And this comes to the cultural side also. My conclusion here is, with all this work that we have to do on ourselves, and then also the way we look at us, it's to avoid being apologetic and being on the defensive. Yes, sometimes we have to respond, but sometimes we have to go beyond this. We have to come with a vision, we have to come with our principles, and then we have to contribute. And this is the second point. This is where confidence is important. This is also where a sense of history is important, trusting him beyond time and in time, in history. This is also something, and we do what we have to do. Two things, two last points. The first of the two is we have lots of people of other faiths around us that are sharing our values. And now we have not to look at, you should be able to look at what is bad among Muslims and what is good with people of other faiths. And some of people of other faiths are more responsive and more right with the principles than many Muslims. And this is why it's important. It's very important to have alliances, to look at the people and say, okay, you might not be a Muslim, you might be a Jew, a Christian, but you have principles that we are sharing. And to look at your fellow Muslims and say, you know what, we have the same religion, but we don't share the same principles. Because the way you deal with your religion, that's not. And my duty is to remind you of this discrepancy and this betrayal. This is something which is important. Not a close community of Muslims against the other. We belong to our principles and we look for people with principles. We are peoples of principles, and we look for people of principles, whoever you are. And you know this? It's not coming from me. You can find this in somebody who is colonized by the Salafism, the Taymiyyah, making the principle of justice beyond, and even freedom coming first. Look at this, because we don't know our tradition. And the last thing that I want to say, at the end, if you understand all what I'm saying here, with this trust, with this confidence, what role do we have to play? When I was, I just finished a book on Introduction to Islamic Ethics, and I was trying to find what is the highest value in Islam. And in fact, when I wrote the book on the Prophet ﷺ, I understood that the most important value in Islam is not justice, as I was repeating, is peace. Enter in God's peace with all your heart and all your being. We should be agents of peace. But peace has conditions. Even jihad is to get inner peace. Even jihad, resisting the people who are aggressing us, is for peace. And when we are in this society for education, social justice, solidarity, what do we want to achieve? Allahumma anta salam, wa minka salam, wa ilayka ya'udu salam. It's all about peace. But peace, and this is the paradox, needs struggle. We need to struggle to get peace, but we need to be committed. This is something which is important. Agents of peace, agents of reconciliation. This is where we have our responsibility. We have to start with ourselves and then also to spread it around. Remember something the Prophet ﷺ said arriving in Medina, Ifshu salam. And it's when he said, spread peace, that he said to the people, At'imu ta'am, serve the poor. And then he said, Silul Arham, be close with your family. Be careful, peace start at home. And third, look the circles. Ifshu salam, spread peace. And then, At'imu ta'am, give food to the poor people. And then it comes to the family. Be careful with your family, peace. And then it comes to you. Sallu wa nasu niyam. Pray while the people are sleeping. What does it mean? Take care of yourself. 2 words that I want you to keep for this lecture. First, be positive. Second, take care of yourself. Third, don't clap. No.